I think we're a little crooked.
What? That doesn't look too bad here.
Oh, is that? Okay.
No, that looks fine. Okay. Don't see anybody yet. And hopefully we are broadcasting. Give everybody a bit of time here. Don't see anybody yet. Oh, Pracey's here. Hi, Pracey. Can you hear us okay? I think we're a little crooked.
I said that.
I know, but I thought you meant, never mind. Oh, more people coming on here. Okay.
Go.
Okay, so Anita's here. Hi, Anita. You made it today. Rosie's here. Hi, Rosie. And Cindy's here. Hi, Cindy. What's your problem?
Can't find the latest one that you put up.
Well, it probably has to be refresh. Oh, why is it doing that? That's not what I want to. There we are.
Okay.
Okay. Alrighty. And Andy's here. Hi, Andy. And Julie. Hi, Julie. Okay, so the gang is here. Welcome, everybody. And are we still crooked? Not too bad. Looks better on here. Okay, so before we get into today's topic, what are we eating? What are we drinking? What are we drinking? You made it. What is it?
Orange juice, vodka, and peach schnapps.
So it's a Screwdriver Plus.
Yeah, wow. I think it's called a fuzzy navel.
Oh, a fuzzy navel. No, don't think that's where it came from.
Actually, we were supposed to put peaches in with it too, but I never got around to getting
Oh.
peaches. So
Cindy says, nice rainy afternoon. Not here. Nice and sunny here. And this is our long weekend. This is the Canada Day weekend. Tomorrow is officially July 1st, Canada Day. So that's our, I hate to use the American equivalent, but that seems to be what people relate to. So it is like our Independence Day, except it's not Independence Day. It's just the founding of our country, or when we became a country, not the founding. The founding of Canada was back in the late 1400s, actually. But it wasn't called Canada then. Thank you, Cindy. Cindy says, Happy Canada Day. So, let's get on with what's going on. So, first, before we get into the main topic, and today's topic is travel. And before we get to that, let's do an update on my mother. Just got off the phone with her. Her teeth are hurting. You know, she got new teeth. And she was complaining that one of the people at staff at the home. What are you doing?
I'm adjusting my stool.
Oh. Can I push your stool in?
No.
Never mind. That's a joke for another time. Anyways. So, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, my mother's teeth. My mother's teeth. So I guess she was saying that there's one of the, I don't know, they're not really nurses.
They're PSWs.
PSWs,
Personal service workers.
Yeah. It was kind of rough on her, taking them out with her. And my mother doesn't like this particular PSW worker anyways.
I don't think your mother likes any of them.
No, I don't think she does. Well, she says the one that came in and helped her this morning was great. But anyways, she's having some soreness. That's to be expected. She hasn't had them a week yet. It'll be a week tomorrow. So I told her, well, the denturist is supposed to come back in and check them and do some fine tuning with all of that because they know there's going to be some soreness, you know, when you're first getting used to them a whole bit. I said if he doesn't come in or they don't contact me about when he's coming in by about Tuesday of next week, then I will give them a call and, you know, make arrangements. In the meantime, I said if this one particular PSW is, you know, hurts you again, let me know and I will investigate. I mean, you don't know whether it's my mother's concept of it or if it's real, and I want to err on the side more of that she's telling me the truth. Because, you know, you hear about senior abuse and things. I mean, this home she's in, they've been really excellent with her. I have no complaints whatsoever. So, if I have to investigate it, I'll just send an email off to one of the administrators and just say, this is what I'm concerned about. I don't know if I should be concerned, and they'll look into it. But I'll give it a second chance. I usually find with my mother, you should never jump to conclusions when she tells you something right off the bat. Give it some time, because these things have a way of sorting themselves out. So that's my mother. Hi, Chris. So last week, Walter and I went off to a place called Fig, Fantasy and Glass. I think we mentioned that they were going out of business, and so Walter, of course, is where he gets his stained glass. So we went down to see if there were any bargains to be had. Did you get any bargains?
Yeah, I picked up a few things. I bought some foil, which is usually like $10 a roll. It's $3 a roll.
Bargain.
And I'm wondering if I'm not getting all the comments. We got this weird message in.
No, that's always there.
Okay.
That goes up, moves. Well, you may have to do a little moving up. No, you're up to date.
Okay. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, and I bought a few pieces of glass, but they weren't particularly, I thought, cheap. But I had heard that I hadn't bought glass in a while, and I had heard that glass had gone up quite a bit. Mainly because one of the major manufacturers, who I can't remember the name of right now, went out of business in the United States, and it stopped doing business because of glass production tends to produce a lot of toxic elements into the environment. So because of environmental issues, they had to stop production in the United States. So or have to set up their factories so that they didn't pollute so much, right? So the company was bought out by another company called, I think, Ocean Glass or something like this. And they said they took them about a year to get into production of the recipes for the glass that the other company had. And actually, it's called Spectrum Glass that closed. Spectrum Glass that closed. And actually, they moved some of the production to Mexico, because in Mexico they don't have the
They don't produce.
They don't have the laws.
Oh,
for,
right.
The
They get
environment
things cheap.
that they have in the United States, and so, but in the meantime, because of all this added production and somebody else taking the company over, they jacked up the prices on the glass to pretty much double what it was before.
And it wasn't particularly cheap before.
Well,
although
it wasn't terrible. It was about for clear glass, for clear, see-through, not colored glass at all. It was about $8 a square foot, and now it's more like $20 a square foot.
Oh, that's a considerable amount more.
Yeah, and if you want glass that you can melt for like
That's the glass for fusing?
For fusing, it's now $30 a square foot, whereas it used to be about $10 a square foot.
Geez, that's a
So
huge markup.
It's a huge jack up on the price.
So what did you buy?
So I don't know. I haven't actually unwrapped it. I've got two large pieces of clear glass, because you can always have clear glass, and it's not just clear. It's got like speckles in it and stuff like that, like bubbles in it, which are often used in stained glass. And I got a couple of greens, and I got, I think, a brown, and they're always staples when you're doing so. Greens for foliage, brown for rocks. I got a couple of blues for sky, and I think that's all about all I got.
And now you got to use it.
Well, I have a whole stash of glass still too.
Yeah, but you haven't done any stained glass.
I haven't done any for a while. I do have a couple projects that I've been sort of thinking I'd do, but I haven't done them yet.
Yeah. You spend all day staring at the computer screen.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Okay, that's
I
what
know,
you did all day when you worked.
I got to get out of that. I gotten into a bad habit with that.
Yeah, well, whatever. Well, moving on from stained glass, we went in and I long-armed a quilt. Walter went with me. He kind of did some of it as well as I did. And there were some problems, but like I broke a needle. And the lady who owns the place, she works on her own in there, but she had an emergency that day. don't know if it was her son. Her son earlier in the week had oral surgery and she was in emergency. So on Friday when we were there, so another lady who actually is a member of my guild and is a good friend of the person who owns the Long Arm store, came in to help her out, well, run it. And she knows how to set up the machines and everything like that. So once we got going, though, it went along quite well. It took about 3 hours from the time we went in, but it's a large quilt, and I've now got that quilt finished, and I'm going to put that's going to be one of my quilts that I'm putting into our guild show in November, and I'm going to show it tomorrow on my vlog, because it's kind of awkward in this format up here to show it because it is so large. But I'm really pleased with how it turned out. It looks pretty good. I got the binding on this morning, got my hanger thing on it, the sleeve on the back of it. You have to put a hanger sleeve on them when they go on display. They can put basically a curtain rod kind of a thing through at the back. And even made a label for it. I have a bad habit of not labeling my quilts, and you get told off at the guild for that because they say you got to do that for, future generations know who made this quilt, kind of a thing. So I did do that as well. So now I can move on to other quilts that I need to quilt and get caught up on that. So I figure each time we go down, we do some of this, we get a little bit more comfortable with the whole thing, because those machines are quite the thing. I can understand why they're so expensive, but they've got quirks, just like anything you learn for the first time. So, and we hit most of the quirks that day, but it worked out okay. Chris says, would love to see some of the things you make, Walter. Actually, Chris, I did a video of a lot of Walter's stained glass stuff. Oh, geez. Probably a year and a half ago.
I haven't done it for probably a year and a half, 2 years probably.
And so you'd have to do a search on my channel. It's probably under, I'm not sure if it's in a vlog. I don't think it's a vlog. I think it's a standalone one, and I'm not even sure what playlist I put it in. But if you do a search in YouTube and put in Bland Designs stained glass, you might find it. If I remember, I'll put the link in the show notes, either today in these ones or the ones in my blog.
Your show notes.
Yeah, I'll put that down here. Okay. Add link to Walter's stained glass. Yes, I said glass, not his stained ass. Okay. Okay, so that's long arm. What else? How's your quilting class going?
Oh, it's going okay. I have to finish some blocks yet from last thing. I don't have a class this Tuesday, but the next Tuesday.
Have you got one of your blocks handy? Because they're different from what you showed last week, because now you've done the next stage, right? You've done the cutting of them. The color scheme in it it's going to look really good. At first, when he was looking at colors, he was a little apprehensive that they might be too bold, but I think they stand out really nice. And now with the way that these blocks have to be cut, it's called a disappearing 9 patch. It looks really quite cool. I think the whole quilt's going to be really nice when he gets it done. And that's when he's going to have to take to the long armor as well to get to do whatever he's going to do on that too. He won't be able to show it though at our guild because he's not a member of the guild. Of course, if you became a member of the guild, you could show it. So that's what one block looks like.
Yeah.
And so you have to picture that with how many blocks is it going to be total? 20?
It's going to be
25?
It's going to be 4 blocks wide and
5 blocks
5
down.
blocks
So
high.
20 blocks.
20 blocks, yeah.
Plus a border. And that'll make a fairly sizable quilt when he gets that done. So that'll look great. We'll show it to you when he gets it done. Andy says those colors are gorgeous. She loves those. Okay, so that takes us up to what's been happening in the last week. And what else? So just what's newsworthy? Well, of course, school is out here in Ontario and probably everywhere in Canada. I know that in the States, certain states go out in May and go back in August. Here, for the most part, unless they're one that have the, I forget what we called it. We had an alternate school year. They're all out at the end of June and go back in at the 1st of September, Labor Day. But with that, teachers' contracts run out at the end of August. And we've been telling you about the problems with our provincial government here with Ford, the new idiot that's our premier, Mini Trump, as I like to call him. He's figuring that he's going to have an easy break with the teachers here because he can just turn around, legislate them back to work because they'll be in a position to go on strike. And he's already done so many cutbacks and the whole bit that basically avoiding a strike, I don't think he's going to be able to do it. But if he legislates them back to work, doesn't matter. There are other ways. He's going up against 2 extremely powerful unions. Actually, he's going up against 3 unions because I think, is it CUPE or is it? Yeah.
No, OPSU.
OPSU is up too.
Which is generally most of the provincial
provincial employees.
Yeah.
The people that work in government jobs. So he's going to be in for a fight of his life. Now, thing is, it's not going to jeopardize the school year starting up because there's a process that has to be gone through before the teachers will actually go on strike. So it's not going to happen the first day back at school because the contracts run out on August the 31st, and Labor Day this year, I think, is actually on the 1st of September. I think.
Actually, Prezi put that thing up. It says Bland Designs The Art of Stained Glass, published on May 16th.
Oh, okay. So it's 2 years.
2017.
2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Pracy. So that's the link there, Chris, or anybody else who's interested in seeing. I took a little tour of the house with all the pieces of stained glass. We have a lot of them in our house, so you can see all of Walter's stuff there. And I don't think since I made that video, I don't think you've done anything.
Probably not.
No, you haven't.
Ever since Deborah closed her store, which was about 2 years ago now, I stopped. I kept saying I would do stuff, but
yeah, well, you didn't.
and I've got lots of glass and I've got lots of supplies.
Yeah, well, get on with that.
Yeah.
And I told you what you should be doing with your workshop for that, but you know.
Yeah, I know. I got
Goes in one
clean
end
it
of
up.
the- Yeah, we have a lot of things to clean out, but let's not get on that. That's an old worn record. Okay, so anyways, it's going to be fun come September, and I wish the teachers all good luck. Why wouldn't I? Been on this road before too myself when I was a teacher, and I'm just glad
Yeah,
that I'm
well,
retired now.
The last time we had a government like this, I was
Yeah.
working for provincial government, and we had a big long 5-week strike out in the middle of the winter. So
Yeah. Yes, I remember that quite distinctly because I went down and I marched with you one day there, and I kept saying to all of your fellow workers at the time, well, I hope when we go on strike you'll support us because they're going, oh, teachers, yay, they're supporting us. Yeah, did they come out? No. No. Assholes. But anyways, that's to be expected. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about travel, the ins and the outs from our perspective. And I hope you'll want to join in and tell us some of your stories about your good experiences and your bad, because, you know, you do have bad experiences when you travel too, for one reason or another. It isn't all perfectly great, as you know. So I thought we'd start off by listing all the places we've been. Now, just before I say that, before I met Walter, well, before we met, neither one of us had ever traveled that extensively. I mean, I went on a few family trips, mostly through like Quebec, because that's close to Ontario.
well, my parents were
States.
Dutch and immigrated to Canada in 1954. So I had about 3 trips behind me that went back to Holland to visit my grandparents. So I always had a travel bug because of the fact that there was a time period in my life when I was really young that I traveled back to Europe. And in those days, it wasn't so common for people to travel.
Well, no, you said like you went on you didn't go on a jet the first time, did you?
Well, the very first time I was 3, and my mother was going to go back to live in Holland permanently, and so I was 3, and that's because she was taking all kinds of other stuff with her. to go back to Holland. And at that, she only lived there for 6 months. She was waiting for my dad to come about 6 months down the road. And I guess when it came down to the final decision as to whether they were going to actually do this or not, my mother sent my dad a message back that said, "I can't live here anymore. I want to come back."
But of course, that didn't answer my question. But thanks for all
What?
the details.
What?
What kind of plane was it? Did you go on a jet?
Yeah, the first time I went back, the first time that I remember flying back to Holland was in 1967. We took a jet.
I thought it was a prop.
No, well, my parents came over here in a prop.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't born then yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know that.
We took a jet back.
Oh, all right. Because the way you described it back
No,
then.
my parents came over in 1954. They flew from Holland to Canada when they immigrated. And in 1954, it was a prop plane that held 24 people.
24 people?
Yeah, 24
Holy.
people, right? And it flew from Holland to somewhere in the UK, somewhere in the UK, can't remember where. It landed to refuel, right?
Yeah.
Then it refueled and flew over the ocean, over the Atlantic, to Gander, Newfoundland.
Yeah. Gander's
Right.
where they used to
Right,
refuel
because
there,
they
too.
couldn't fly that long. And even then, the flight itself to get across the Atlantic was like 12 or 13 hours on a prop plane,
Yeah.
right? So, and they had shifts, the air stewardesses and everything else had shifts so that they could sleep in there. And they kept walking back and forth and checking the wings for ice, right? And
What, did someone have to get out with a shovel if it iced?
no, I don't know. So then, anyway, I don't know what they would have done if there was too much ice on the wings. But anyway,
Pray.
so they landed in Gander, Newfoundland. From there, and then they had to refuel again, and then they flew to Montreal because Toronto didn't have an airport. And
Oh.
so then they had to get off in Montreal and take a train to Oshawa.
Jeez. And you said it took
It took
13 hours to go from the Netherlands.
No, it took. I'm not sure. It took them 24 hours to get to Oshawa.
And to think that to us a long flight was flying to Australia, and that was 14 hours nonstop.
Right. It
So-
was a huge undertaking, and it was really, really expensive to do that.
You know, well, now
Because
some
most-
things haven't changed.
Most of the people took a boat that immigrated because that was at that point in time the cheapest way to get across. But my parents had a little bit more money, so they decided that they wanted the faster route. And my mother always said, "I can't believe that we actually did that."
Yeah, well, in those days that would have been quite a feat, an adventure, for many reasons. I mean, they weren't traveling for pleasure, though. They were traveling for basically a new life.
Yeah.
So major life changes. Whereas we travel for pleasure. Now, my first experiences with travel were not international. That was for sure. My mother always liked to travel. My father did too, I think. But of course, my father had to do all the driving and the packing of the car and the unpacking of the car. And so we went to, I think, one of the very first trips I really remember was in 1967. I was 10 years ago. 10 years ago. What? What's that?
Same year I went to Holland.
Yeah. Well, of course, you always do that when I'm talking. And we went to Quebec City. We drove, and we went to the East Coast. So we went down to we did New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island. I remember that, and drove home. And we camped because my parents didn't have much money in those days. And so we camped. And my parents didn't even have camping equipment. They borrowed it from a neighbor. And I'll never forget, we had this huge tent. My sister was 3 years old. So we were traveling with a baby as well. I was 10, my brother was 6, and my sister was, actually, she wasn't even quite 3 yet. She was only about 2.5. No, she'd only been 2 because I was 10, and my sister's 8 years younger than me. So she was only 2 with that. Boy, my parents were brave. And we camped somewhere outside of Quebec City. And I remember we were at the bottom of sort of a hill. It was sort of one of those campsites, you rent the spot. My dad got the tent up. It was a large tent. It had a floor, sort of. It was a tarp that you put down on the ground, and it rained. And in the middle of the night, all the water came down the slope and was running into our tent. So some other guy, all I remember is this other guy's name was Mr. Mimi. That was his name, and he was French Canadian. He had an accent. And he helped my dad prop up the floor of the tent with a couple of pop bottles. And they sort of dug a little trench under this. So right through the middle of the tent, under the tarp, there was a canal of water. A little trough they had dug. And the pop bottles held up the lip of the tarp so it wouldn't come in. And so basically we had a river running underneath of us and out. And that's about all I remember. I also remember that was the year of the centennial for Canada, 100 years old at that time, and they had the World Expo was in Montreal, and we didn't go to it. We saw it from a distance as we drove by. I know as a kid I wanted to go because I was just thinking there were rides, right? I didn't really know what the whole thing was much about. I was only 10. But now when I look back at it, I kind of figure why we didn't stop and go, because it was probably really expensive in those days, and my parents didn't have the money for that kind of thing. In fact, I remember on the way home from the East Coast, they needed gas, and my mother was counting out change to see if they had enough money to get enough gas in the car to get us home, kind of a thing. So, yeah, that was my first really major memory of doing any kind of traveling, and as I said, it was only to another province. And then, we used to go to Niagara Falls and things like that, but never anything too extensive. Hi, Laura. Laura says, I was born during the centennial and got a special birth certificate for it. Yeah, you're just a kid. Yeah, baby, I've got underwear older than you. But, and I'm wearing it, maybe. So anyways, where have we been since those days? Well, let's name them off. Where have we been? We've
You
been...
didn't have it written down?
No. Well, let's start.
Well, actually, it started off the very first trip.
Well, I was just going to list the places first, and I thought we'd talk about our very first
okay.
trip. But just the things. We've seen all of Canada with the exception of the territories, which is Northwest Territory, Yukon, and we'll have none of it up there too, and that's an inside joke. Probably only Canadians will get that.
And Newfoundland.
We haven't been to Newfoundland yet. And, not so sure about it.
I don't know, it's sort of on my list if I wouldn't mind to do. But it's sort of also something that you can sort of go to when you're older.
I think you need to go to Newfoundland when you're older because, quite frankly, from what I've heard, it's very pretty, it's very nice, and the pace of life is very relaxed.
Not only that, our medical benefits will cover us.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Although to get to Newfoundland, now a lot of people might not know this that don't come from Canada. Even Canadians don't. A lot of Canadians don't realize this because I didn't really realize this too until not that long ago. To get to Newfoundland, you have to take a ferry. I knew that, but I didn't.
Well, you got two ways. You can fly there, or you can take a ferry. Right?
If you take a ferry, the ferry is like
it's an overnight.
It's an overnight. It's expensive too.
It's not cheap. But it's a way to get your car over to the island.
Yeah.
So, and it's like an overnight thing, and
you have to book ahead, and it's quite expensive. Hi,
the
Carol.
body of water, which I'm not sure which it is, the body of water that's between Canada mainland and Newfoundland,
piece of the Atlantic Ocean
is really rough.
Well, it's part of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, I know, but that
it's
straight. Area,
yeah,
because I guess there's a lot of turbulence from the water going through that area.
Yeah, probably.
And because it's also sort of, isn't it, sort of the mouth of the St. Lawrence as well?
Yes. Well, no.
Okay, well, no, I'm not sure.
Well,
I don't know. I have to look at it.
I don't know. Jeez, we only live here.
But anyway, apparently the water is really rough, and like the lady that did the stained glass, the store that she moved to Newfoundland permanently, and she basically get drunk because the boat rocked so bad to get across that she wasn't very well.
No, well, I've heard that it can be a bit of a rough ride going over there, and especially if you're somebody that suffers from seasickness or something like that. I suppose it's not anymore. It's probably even worse. But so that's Canada. The United States, we have been to a lot of the northern states, down the eastern seaboard. We've been down to Florida. We've been to California.
We've been to I've been to Texas, but that was
I've
a long
never been.
time
That
ago,
was
but
before you
that
met me.
Yeah, and I've been to where else? We've been to Las Vegas a couple of times. We've been to we went to California, Los Angeles, drove around, went to La Jolla and San Francisco, and
Well, I was talking maybe more states than
yeah,
these
okay,
particular
and,
ones, but
we've seen the Grand Canyon, and
I can't say as though I enjoy traveling in the States, especially today in their environment right now. It's a totally different world from Canada, believe it or not. A lot of people who don't live in North America
a
think,
lot of people think that Canada is sort of like another part of the United States,
And we're not.
or that we're pretty much the same on the other side of the border. But
Yeah.
actually, Canada is quite a bit different than the United States.
we probably have more in common with the people in the British Isles than we do with the Americans
yeah,
in some
or
ways.
even in some ways the Australians.
Yeah, we're very much. That's why we liked Australia, and that's the other place. Of course, you know we've been to Australia and New Zealand, but that's another reason why we liked Australia. Australia really is like us in many ways. It's not very foreign. Now, yes, I know you're going to say that. Well, if you're going to travel, you should experience things that are different from home, and yes, that's why you travel. One of the reasons why you
Well,
travel.
I'm not saying Australia is
But-
not different at home.
No,
There's
it's just a
lot of
little bit more.
differences.
I found Australia more comfortable to travel in
Yeah.
than the States. In the States, but that's a discussion for another day. In fact, we probably touched on
Yeah,
that
I
in
know.
other times.
It's just a.
Not to beat up on the Americans.
No, it isn't.
Or anything like that. It's just that we are different from the Americans. But where else have we been? Okay, let's talk about. We've been on like what? How many cruises have we been on?
About eight, I think.
8 or 9.
I don't know.
I don't know. I've lost
There was-
track.
There was the first one we took was the Royal Margaret Cruises, which was on the
Yeah, Carnival.
on the Carnival,
And that was a Caribbean.
holiday. It was the very first one we ever
Yeah.
did. It was a small ship, and it was okay, but we didn't do it. We did Bad Year. We did it like 2001, right?
Yeah,
after 9/11.
yeah, it was right after 9/11. Was not the best of timing.
And so then.
Tracy says,
No, we would never do a Disney cruise.
"Oh no,
Ever,
God
ever,
no,
ever.
that'd be the
Ever,
cru-
ever,
that
ever.
would be the cruise to hell."
Too many children.
Yeah,
No.
no. I do not want to dress up like a princess. I don't want lunch or brunch with one of the characters on this, and I don't want to be walking around every corner of the ship with some guy in a mouse costume going, "Hey!" No. Plus, they're expensive too for what you get.
And plus, they don't often go worldwide or whatever.
No, they're usually only 4 days, 4 or 5 days.
So then the next one we took was actually an all-gay cruise, which was a Southern Caribbean cruise that
Yep.
left Puerto Rico.
Now that is a discussion on itself. If you to go on a gay cruise, 1,800 to 2,000 and
For
some
2,800.
men, 30 women. Yeah, what was that one? 2,800 men,
37 women.
37 women. Okay, on it, and they were mostly lesbian, although there were a few that we call fag hags that came with their gay friends to experience it. Because actually, we asked some of the women who were straight women why you would go on a gay cruise, and they said because we know we're not going to be hit on by the men, and we can have a good time. Because she says the gays, as they call them, just party all the time. And yes, it is. We've
Well-
been on 3 of them.
4, I thought.
Are we on 4?
Yeah.
Geez, we're sucker for punishment. First one was really, really exciting because we had no idea what to expect. The second one was great because we knew what to expect, and so we were prepared for that. The third one was getting a little, it was still good, but then it became, ooh, they do the same parties in the same sequence all the time. And the fourth,
the cost of the gay cruises are
Yeah,
a lot more expensive.
there
than
are no
regular
perks.
cruises.
You don't get
They
any
are a
freebies.
lot more expensive.
And they actually up the price of the alcohol on those. And I guess they get in 3 times as much alcohol as they would get on a straight cruise. On a regular cruise, it's the same length of time going to the same destinations. So what's that saying about the gay culture? We drink a lot? I don't know what they're talking about. Do you know what they're talking about? I don't
Well,
know.
anyway, the last one we decided, well, we'll try. We started doing more straight cruises again, or regular cruises there. And we thought, well, there was one that came up in Puerto Rico a few years ago before the devastating hurricane.
Yeah.
And we said, let's do this one more time.
Yeah.
Just to see if we still like it.
Because we were
and all
starting
that
to
sort of
feel
stuff.
like maybe we were getting too old for this.
So we did it, and we hadn't a good enough time, but we decided that we wouldn't do anymore. Because basically of the cost.
But yeah, basically the cost, and we have just as much fun on a regular cruise as we have on Atlantis cruise. That's the
Well,
main-
the problem with the Atlantis cruises a lot of times too is that they have these big elaborate parties that
Go on all night.
all night, and dance all night and all this other stuff. But at our age, we're even
ready
though
for
I'm a
bed
night
by-
hawk,
We're ready for bed by 11,
your Betty Bye time.
and the
is-
parties start at 11.
And we've been on to Mediterranean ones, and they're nice, but if you sightsee all day, you're pooped by the time
Yeah.
you get back to the ship, and you don't really want to party all night.
No, you just
So,
want to sleep.
There were groups of people that would party all night on the Mediterranean one, but not go sightseeing.
They wouldn't go sightseeing; they'd sleep all day. Nighthawks. But whatever, it was an experience. So we've been to the Mediterranean. So we've been to Italy, France, England, Scotland, Ireland, moving up, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, Estonia, Germany, Poland, Croatia, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, or whatever
Turkey.
that was said, Turkey, Egypt, China,
We went to
Shanghai.
Singapore,
Singapore,
China. We went on a tour through China, so we had
Yeah.
China, several stops in China, Xi'an in China, Chongqing in China. Shanghai in China.
yeah,
We've been to
Singapore,
Singapore,
Thailand,
Vietnam,
Vietnam,
Hong Kong.
There's probably some other places in there too that I'm
I
missing.
can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, we have never been anywhere in South America, and I have no desire to go to South America. I might do it if it was a cruise, but there's no way I would just go down to South America on its own. I mean, I know there's lots of people would say, "Oh, it's great, it's wonderful." I'm sure it is, but it's the crime there and everything else, and I don't know. It's just something about it doesn't appeal to me, and that's the same with Mexico. I've never been to Mexico or Cuba. Lots of people go to Mexico. Lots of people go to Cuba. Well, Americans don't to Cuba. They could for a while. Now Trump's gotten rid of that somehow again. But I have no desire to go there.
And
We
now-
have been to Mexico. Oh, wait, we
Yeah.
have been to Mexico.
Tijuana.
We were day trip to Tijuana. Yeah, when we were in California. Bus trip. First thing, 9 o'clock
I don't know
in
if
the...
that counts as Mexico.
Well, yeah, but the best thing about Tijuana was, best thing was the food. We said to the bus driver, it was one of those bus trips that took you from San Diego down to Tijuana and back home again. And we get to Tijuana, and we're getting off the bus. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, and right outside the bus door, when we get off, there's some guy standing there. "Hey, mister, we've got women. We've got cold beer and women." And I go, well, the beer's not such a bad idea, even if it is 9 o'clock in the morning. The women, put those on ice for a long way away. But we said to the bus driver at the time, and this is quite a few years ago now, said, okay, where can we get authentic Mexican food? I mean, we've all had the Tex-Mex stuff. We've all got a Taco Bell somewhere. And we've all had, you make your own tacos at home with whatever they call that. the ones you buy in
I
package.
guess Julie Chambers has had a really bad cruise experience with bad weather.
Oh, well, that can happen, and that can put you off a little bit, especially, like I said, if you're seasick.
Uh,
But, anyways, we did go to, he directed us to a place where all the bus drivers ate, and it was a hole in the wall, literally a hole in the wall on a street corner. And we had, like, soft tacos kind of a thing and a couple of Cokes and stuff like that. And actually, they were really good and really cheap. I think it cost us $3 American. Now, that's quite a few years ago, but that was good.
Taco Bell makes me sick.
Yeah, you're not missing anything, Cindy. Taco Bell. No, no, no. Andy says, the first night at sea, I slept through a pretty decent storm. I didn't even know about the storm until I heard people talking about it at breakfast the next day.
Yeah, some people, the cruises don't mix on cruises.
Luch is here. Hi, Luch.
On cruises, I've always, I know I get motion sick sometimes, and I take a pill called Bonine, and it helps with me.
I mean, the only time I ever had it bother me, and it didn't really bother me, but I felt it, because, like, we said that you slept through it, was when we went across the Tasmanian Sea.
Yeah, the Tasmanian Sea, we crossed the Tasmanian Sea during a storm, and we had 30-foot high waves, and it was...
And you felt them.
It was bad. We also had a rogue wave hit where the whole ship
Oh, yeah,
listed
that was
really
funny.
badly to one side. Actually, it was kind of scary, actually.
Well, at
But at the
first.
time we were there, it didn't really bother us that much. But the whole ship listed to one side. And the other time, and we were on a big ship. We were a 120,000 ton boat. And the ship that we were in had, we were in Celebrity of the Sea Solstice, and to cross the Tasman Sea. And we had 30-foot high waves for 2 days. And yeah, the second Bonine was working good for me, because on this end of the second day we went to eat dinner, and we were one of the few people in the dining room.
Certainly wasn't
And
a
they
crowd
asked
that
us,
night.
"Are you feeling okay?" Because I guess they didn't want anybody to come in there and throw up. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that would be disgusting.
but we were fine. We were sitting there. It was like being on a ride. We were just going up and down and up and down. And then I'm sorry I never took a video of it, because we were on the dining room in the third floor, and the waves were hitting the windows on the
Yeah.
third floor. So
Well, then that rogue wave hit us, and we were in the bar in the lounge area was that the back of the
that was
ship?
the very front of the ship. Actually, it hit the front. The wave was so high. We were on the 14th deck. The wave was so high, it washed
Over
over
the
the top of the front of the 14th floor windows, and it caused the whole ship to list completely to one side.
And we watched booze fly out of
And
cupboards and
They had
smash and
booze.
crash.
I guess they had booze on the counters we were sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
Booze on the counters of the bar, and then they have booze in areas where they're protected them from bouncing out, and even a few bottles would bounced out of there, and all the glasses went smashing
All the glasses went
everywhere.
smashing.
And actually all you could smell was booze everywhere.
Yeah, that was something to make you cry over when all that booze. But yeah, cruises for the most part though, and actually we've been talking again about maybe our next trip might be, I'm leaning towards going on a cruise again. I'm getting that kind of, I want to be on a cruise again fever.
I mean, they're not perfect. Occasionally we've had 2 cruises where because of weather related reasons, they couldn't go to a port that we were scheduled to go to, which is a bit of a bummer when you're on a cruise.
Yeah.
But
And they do explain that to you in the, the thing you sign, the waiver, that there is a possibility they reserve the right to change the itinerary, and they will if they can't with the weather. But they usually make it up to you in some ways. So, and in some ways, like when we were in New Zealand, they couldn't get into one part, and we had like an overnight thing that we paid.
Yeah, what happened was we were supposed to go to Dunedin, and then we were supposed to take a bus from Dunedin to the other side to Queenstown. We were supposed to stay overnight in Queenstown and catch the ship the next day on the other side, right? And because of the bad weather, they couldn't go around the bottom of New Zealand to get into the spot where they were supposed to pick us up. So they decided to still run the trip, but they would end up coming back to the ship in Dunedin rather than we would overnight, but then we would come back the next day to Dunedin before the ship would take off, right? A lot of people were really ticked off at because the whole idea is they wanted to be picked up in this other spot on the other side. But then we just decided they originally had 2 buses that were going to do this, and they ended up with only a partial of 1 bus left. You could say to them, no, you're not going to do that, and they'd give you your money back, but then you'd be stuck in Dunedin for 2 days.
Yeah, and Dunedin's not that exciting.
So we decided to go ahead with it, and we were really glad we did. But it was an expensive tour. It was almost $1,000 for each of us. So.
Okay, it says, I'll come here to, Luch says, what are we drinking, Luch? Luch, we're drinking some concoction Walter came up with that.
Fuzzy navel.
A fuzzy navel, yeah. He calls it that. Whatever. But the thing about, if they do change the itinerary on you, usually they make it up to you one way or another. So at least we have found that with Celebrity, and that's primarily the cruise lines that we go on. They're the next level up on. They're Royal Caribbean, but they're.
I mean, we have been on because of the different. I look for the itinerary more than necessarily the brand of cruise, but we've been on Celebrity a lot. We've been on Carnival once.
Been on
we've been
Princess.
On Princess once, and we've been on Royal Caribbean a couple of times.
Yes. And so far out of all those ones, we prefer Celebrity, and we usually travel Aqua Class, which you pay a little bit more for, but it has a separate dining room from the en masse dining room. It's just a little nicer service. I mean, that's not to say that when you go on Celebrity, whatever class you're going on, you'll get excellent service. But it's just a little nicer. And it doesn't cost that much more. But we like it for that. Julie says, I nearly got my full travel price back. We missed so many stops. Yeah. Well, you want to know, lately I've been watching some YouTube videos about cruises and that. And it seems that lately there's been a whole lot of problems for people on cruises, which have involved major itinerary changes because they've had mechanical problems on the ships, or they've had captains who have been running the ships into other ships, or things like that, which kind of makes you a little wary about taking a cruise. And I think if I'd never taken a cruise before, I think those kind of things would bother me. Like I would say, I'm really not going to do that.
No.
But because we have, that doesn't bother me at all with it.
It's disappointing. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it disappointing? Yes, it is.
But the advantage of doing a cruise over other forms of travel, okay? Now, we've done bus tours before in Europe, okay? We've done road trips. Well, actually, when we were in Australia, we had a rented car, as you know, and we drove all around for that. But that was a little different because, really, if you're going to see Australia, you can't see it from a cruise ship. And that's the other thing about cruises. If you want to go and explore the interior of certain countries and that, you can't do that on a cruise ship very well. But the advantage of a cruise over, say, a bus tour or another, or going yourself and planning out your itinerary, is you know where you're going to be staying every night. Your meals are all included. So, if you're like us, we never know where to eat when we're in some other country, and we end up always picking something lousy out of it. So, and of course, if you've got problems, dietary problems, that can be looked after by a cruise ship better than if you're out exploring places you've never been to before. You have entertainment, and, really, it's a floating hotel. So,
and it's a way to get a little bit of a glimpse of all the other areas. And in fact, it also caused us to be able to decide that, okay, let's go back to somewhere and
then explore it more extensively. So if you're going because you want to get down and dirty with the natives, no, cruises are not for you. But personally, I don't want to get down and dirty with the natives.
The other thing about cruises
from
a gay perspective, and that's not just gay cruises, but like regular plain old cruises is that they are very gay friendly and
We're safe, and we are going to come to that topic, but you're jumping ahead
Okay.
of things. So I'm going to stop you on that. Tracy asks, have you ever stayed in an undersea hotel? No, and I won't. Why? I like air.
He's claustrophobic.
I'm claustrophobic for
Actually,
one
I
thing.
think I'd be uptight that the glass would break.
I'd be afraid, like, someone comes in and goes, it's stuffy in here, let's open a window. No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, especially with your record of
Ye-
things
what?
that go wrong.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too. So, no, I have no desire to do that whatsoever. Julie says her cruise was in 1982. Well, you want to know something? Cruise ships have gotten a lot better since 1982. In fact, we said that our first cruise was in 2001. There has been a vast change in the last 18 years since we've been cruising now for 18 years that we see. And every year they get much more sophisticated, much more...
They are actually a lot better at controlling rough waters
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, we were on that ship. We had 30-foot waves for 2 days, and it was the ship was moving really bad. Like, I mean, they said that they made announcements that women were not allowed to wear open-toed shoes, and that's probably because of people walking as if they were drunk and they're not.
Yeah.
And worried that you would stand on somebody's foot.
But that, in our experience, is a rarity. That doesn't happen every cruise. Okay, so no. I mean, that doesn't discourage me at all from going on another cruise. But let's talk about other ways of traveling that we have traveled. Let's talk about the bus tours, because when we first started to travel, basically we had never been on a cruise. We couldn't afford to go on a cruise. And so we were looking for bus tours, and the type that they were expensive too, or it seemed to be in that day and age. But they look after your accommodation, they look after some of your meals, and you go to all the spots you need to go and the whole bit. But the problem is you're on a bus, and you travel. A lot of your trip is basically seeing it from the inside of a bus because you're on the road all the time. And the other problem with it is, a lot of times you're only staying one night in a place. You have to lug all your luggage out, tramp up to where your room is, and depending on the type of bus tour trip you're on, you're staying sometimes in some of the ones we went on, they called them tourist class, which basically meant, well, you had a room, okay? They were clean, they were okay, but they certainly weren't 5-star luxury hotels. Now, there are some bus tours you can go on but you'll pay for that, where they are high luxury. But the problem is, Stu, you're living out of a suitcase. That's why I like cruises. You get in, you unpack, and you're on it for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, and you're only having to pack up again another time to leave. You're not on a bus tour.
That's the one thing.
You're packing, unpacking, packing, unpacking. You're living out of a suitcase.
We went on a bus tour about 7 years ago after you retired to Ireland.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
It was
and
good.
Stuff like that. Yeah. But again, we were on the bus all day long, and all you saw was like Ireland going by on the bus.
Yeah, really. We saw what we needed to see in Ireland, but on the bus, off the bus, on the bus, off the bus. And after a while, actually, you're tired. You're really tired. I mean, the one thing about a cruise, what we would do is we'd go out on the day excursions and the whole bat. We'd get back and we would sit. We always got a balcony room on a cruise ship. And so we could sit out there. We would order up a bottle of cheap champagne. And I mean really cheap. It was just sparkling white wine, but, they called it champagne. But got that. We'd go down to the buffet and pick up some cheese and crackers and stuff. Actually, you could have room service. That's included in the cruise for that kind of thing. But although in the last couple of cruises, they were really fast. But other ones we've been on to, well, yeah, we're going to be waiting an hour to get this stuff. And by then, the champagne is gone.
Syracuse says, watch the special about cruise construction. The ships are getting taller and taller, and the higher center of gravity makes them list from side to side more. Actually, I don't think that's necessarily true.
That's not true.
If you're on a ship and you're sailing with moderate seas, what they call moderate seas, which is your average type waves, nothing like storm size, the ships are really stable.
And they
all
have
the way to the
huge
top.
stabilizers that project out from the ship underwater that keep it from doing that.
There are times where you do not feel the ship moving
Yeah.
when it's under full.
And when it's under full steam and when you're in fairly rough water. Like I said, that crossing that Tasmanian Sea from Tasmania to Sydney,
It was bouncy, but it wasn't so
wasn't-
bad
No.
that you couldn't walk down the hall.
No.
Actually, you couldn't. It wasn't so bad that you couldn't walk down the hall and have to grab a handrail.
so Tracy says, okay, I'll ask. Are vacations really relaxing? No.
No, our
And they
vacations are
shouldn't be.
terrible.
You want to relax, stay at home and sleep. No way. They are not relaxing. I am usually dead tired when we get back, especially if we've been on a long flight to get home too with it all. And you want to know something? The more tired I am after a vacation,
The
better the vacation. It means I did a lot of stuff. If you want relaxation on a vacation, then you're the kind of person that needs to go to some place that's warm, has a beach, and you want to lie on the beach all day long, have your Mai Tais, read your book. And if that's what you want, there is that out there for people.
But
I don't
our
want that.
vacations have never been that way. If we have never gone to an all-inclusive resort because we were
Bored out of our gourd.
Yeah, as it was last year, we went to Florida in was it January or whatever, and we pretty much stayed in this one area, this one resort all day,
And we
and
were
we were
bored.
bored out of our gourd.
We were
And-
really bored because we are not sun worshippers. I am not the kind of person that can sit still for that long.
He doesn't like going to the beach.
I
so-
don't like going to the beach. I don't like going to the beach because I'm bored.
Yeah.
More than anything, I can swim, but I am not a water person. Like I said, I love it. I enjoy oxygen. More of it, the better, kind of a thing. If I'm on a vacation, I want to see things. I want to do things. Because if I'm spending all this bloody money on a cruise, a bus tour, on hotels, food, and the whole bit, then I want to get my money's worth. I want to see things that I've never seen before, you know? And yes, some people will criticize me and say, yeah, but you're doing all the touristy things. Yes, I am. On purpose. I want to see the touristy things because those are the things that you see. Like I said, I have no interest in the local flora, fauna, and people. I don't care. I don't want to experience how they live. No, that's their life. I have my life. And if I'm paying the bucks, I want to do it my way. It's simple as that. But that's me, and I make no apologies for it. I will not be, what was the expression that they were using on some of the travel vlogs that people have on YouTube? Vacation shamed or travel shamed or something like this, where people say, well, you really didn't get to experience the country then. Yes, I did. I experienced it the way I want to experience it, and thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Simple as that. If that's not what somebody else wants, then they plan their own vacation. I'm not saying they can't
Yeah,
do
the
it.
way we travel is not the way everybody would travel. We have our own specific interests.
Hi,
that
Jody.
We like. A lot of people don't like the interests that we have. So,
Yeah, so that's fine. I mean, to each his own. Because isn't that the whole point of traveling? To do what you want to do. And if you're calling it a vacation, if you want something where you're going to be relaxed and unwind because you have a very stressful life at home, then that's fine. I have nothing against that. That's not me. I don't want stress when I'm on vacation, and that's one reason why I like cruises, why I like getting on pre-planned itineraries and things like that, because it takes all the worry out of where are we going to stay. And that takes us kind of to talking about things like planning your vacation. We used to go through a travel agent. He was really good. He was a cruise specialist, for one thing.
And I won't say that I won't go back and
No.
book something through a travel agent. It's just that the last 3 years, it was easy for me to book the vacation.
Well, it's because of the internet, the technology and everything. When we first started to travel, it was easier and less scary to have somebody who was in the know plan your trip for you. But in those days, you couldn't just go online and book
A flight.
a flight or book a cruise or figure out where you're going to stay as easily as it is today. The last few years, Walter's done it all. He's my travel
I mean,
agent.
It's taken me a lot of time and research to try and figure out where to stay. and
Which is
stuff
one
like
reason
that.
why people still use travel agents, because they don't want to be bothered with doing that, and that's fine. But sometimes travel agents, you got to get a travel agent that you can trust too, because there's all kinds of travel agents out there, and it is a business. And when you're dealing with a business, they have to make money. They're not doing this for nothing. Although it may not cost you anything to go into a travel agency and have them book your travel and all that bit, they have to make money. So they get commissions. So they will direct you to certain hotels or certain excursion companies or certain transportation companies and everything like that, where they get a commission for
Where they
doing that.
get to maximize their.
And you may not be getting the absolute best price, but that's the other thing that we need to talk about too. Yes, traveling is expensive. If you think you're going to be able to travel on a shoestring budget, and all these people on YouTube that go, see Europe on $10 a day. If you want to stay in a student hostel where they share a shower, if you want to eat street food, then fine, do that. But personally, to me, as I've always said, roughing it is my idea of a nice hotel that only has maid service every other day. And I don't even know if I'd stay there, okay? Because I want the maid service every day. Sorry, if that makes me sound snotty about traveling, then I'm a snot. But I figure I'm going to have a good time. If I have to nickel and dime it, and we'll come to our first trip and we'll talk about nickel and diming it. What I'm speaking of, I've lived it before.
Just Miss Purple Potato asked how long it takes me to prepare an itinerary. It really depends on how long we're going for, and how long we're going. Actually, Australia can take me a month easily to do that, but it's hard. It depends on how many times you stop and how many hotels that you have to book, and all that other stuff.
And you have to understand something about the way Walter figures out a trip. He just doesn't just say, okay, this hotel looks good, let's take that. He looks at a whole bunch of them, and he looks at all the reviews, and he looks at the cost, and he figures out all this stuff. He right down to the nitty gritty. See, I'm not like that. That's why he's my travel agent.
So, like in the last trip when we went to Australia, we stayed in pretty much decent places all the way, right?
We stayed in all decent places
Yeah,
at Wrestler,
so-
not pretty much.
And the trip before that, we took to Australia. All the choices I made for hotels were good. I gave up some. We didn't always stay in the perfect place, but I gave. It depended on the location of the hotel. I would check online where the best area would be to stay in. Like when we were in Hong Kong, there's an area called Tsim Sha Tsui, I think it's called, and that's where we
Whatever you
stayed.
say.
Because I read reviews that some people said mainland Hong Kong would be the best place to stay, and other people said Tsim Sha Tsui was the best place to stay. And so I picked Tsim Sha Tsui because it actually worked out to be a good area
Yeah.
to stay.
But you're not going to get that kind of service from a travel agent, okay? I can tell you that right now, because they're not going to spend the hours that he spends on planning our
No, a
vacation.
travel agent will just pick a hotel that they may have gotten feedback from other people that said it was a good place to stay, and they'll just say, there. That's it. If they've been to the place before, if a travel agent has been to the place before, they can give you an informed decision. But if the agent has never gone to the place before, they're not sure. For instance, when we went to Hong Kong, we were still doing on the travel agent, and he basically said to me, so where do you want to stay? Give me the hotel name. I can get you a better price.
Yeah.
Right? And when I looked online from what we were paying to what we were paying him, if I had booked the hotel myself, I probably would have gotten a better deal.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot better, but a little better.
So you see, I mean, unless you've been dealing with the same travel agent for years and years and years, and you know them very well and you can trust them, you have to still remember, travel agents are business. However, having said that, if I didn't have him planning it, I would be going to a travel agent because I don't want to be bothered with the minute detail that Walter, he likes doing this. He even said one time he thought he should take something and become a travel agent.
Actually, I'd probably, after hindsight, I probably couldn't be a travel agent because I'm being too picky.
You're being too picky,
and I'd never make any money out of it. Because, and the other thing is that I probably wouldn't be able to deal with bitchy customers.
Yeah, well, that would be the other thing too. But no, if I didn't have him, I would go to a travel agent because I can't be bothered. It's just mind-boggling. I look at it. He shows me stuff and goes, "Well, okay, I was going to do this one, but then I saw this one, then I saw this one, that," and I go, "Just pick. Just pick."
There's a lot of things travel agents do for you that you may not think of, right? For instance, we fly from here to Australia. We have to add 2 days to our itinerary. What happens is you fly here, you leave here on a Friday afternoon, and you arrive on Sunday morning in Australia. So you really have to know and be on top of things as to when your flights arrive and all that other stuff. So it can be difficult, right? And if you're not used to doing that, you may end up booking something you don't really want. Like a friend of ours went off and booked a trip somewhere, I can't remember where, but he had a stopover in New York. Well, he didn't realize, but the stopover that he had in New York was at a completely different airport than the second plane he had to take. So he had to actually find transportation from the one airport to the other airport in order to get his connecting flight.
Yeah. So, yes, travel agents have their place. It all depends on you, on what you want to do, how much time and effort you want to put into planning your trip. That's why I think a lot of people do all-inclusives, because it's all planned out for you. Also, back to the whole question of relaxation, all-inclusives, I think, are for people who really just want to do that. They just want to sit by a pool or on a beach, read a book, and have Mai Tais and enjoy that. That's why we've never been to an all-inclusive, because I've already said
question.
that. Yeah, Jody has a question.
Is that Jody, Miss Purple?
Yeah.
She said, do you have a go-to place for tickets online sites? This is what I do, just in a nutshell. I will use TripAdvisor, I will use Expedia to research where to stay. But I do not book through those sites. I will only book directly with the actual hotel, and I will only directly book with the airline directly. I won't go through a secondary place to book it, even if it so shows me that I'm saving a few dollars, because you lose your control on how you book you lose your control about your bookings, like with your hotel and everything else. When you deal directly with the hotel and you deal directly with the airline, you have the most control to repick your seats, to do everything else. If you book through a third-party site, that is like going through an online travel agency, and that's what I do.
Yeah. So Andy says she planned a 10-day trip out west and planned it all the way down to the last place to get gas before we would have to go 150 miles between towns. And that probably took you a long time to do that, didn't it, Andy? I mean, and yes, I'm the kind of person that likes to know where I'm going to be, where I'm headed to, where I'm staying the night, and ideally, I'd like to know where I'm eating as well. That one doesn't always work out that way, but
even if we take a cruise and it stops in a bunch of different cities, I still have to research what tours to take.
Yes.
Where we're going to go and what we're going to see, type of thing.
So
it's just because I haven't actually booked all the travel arrangements, I still have to research into where we're going to go.
Yeah,
and what we're going
and
to
that
see.
all takes time. And I think the more extensive the trip is, the longer you're going to be away, the more money you're going to be spending on that, the more it's going to take you to plan it the way you want it to be done.
Just another word of warning about reviews. Reviews like on Expedia and TripAdvisor and all other stuff, you have to realize and really realize that there are a lot of reviews out there that are fake reviews. They're not real reviews. You cannot take everything that you read on the internet as actual truth.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say
you have
that.
to weed your way through the fake reviews.
Yeah. And Jody says, do you enjoy road trips within Canada? Okay, good segue into, I want to talk about our very first trip, which was a road trip across Canada. So, First of all, do I like road trips? Yes and no. One advantage of road trips are you get to see things you probably don't see if you're on somebody else's itinerary. Also, what's good about road trips is if you have the ability to be flexible in your itinerary in terms of time, then you can sometimes see something along the way and you say, oh, wow, we should check that out and stop because you're not on a schedule. You don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time, kind of a thing. But the other disadvantage, though, I find with a road trip is distances, especially here in North America. Something Europeans don't understand about traveling in North America.
Like the last time we drove to Florida.
Yeah, I mean, we did a road trip to Florida. We said, well, that's the last time we'll ever do that.
4 years ago.
Yeah, because that was deadly. Now, mind you, that only took us, what did it take us to get to Florida? People do Florida from here in...
It's 1,800 kilometers for us.
They'll do it in 2 days.
So that's like 1,200
or less.
miles.
But they're the kind of people that are making a beeline because they can't afford to take a flight or don't want to spend the money on a flight for one reason or the other, and they will drive all night.
Well, actually, what happens a lot of times with people that I knew would have families, and to book 4 airline tickets
Out of Canada, anyways.
out of Canada to the United States, it was too prohibitive. And you also, Americans probably don't realize that the prices of our flights are a lot more than the prices of your flights.
So,
in fact, some people actually will drive here to Buffalo, leave their car in Buffalo, and take a flight from Buffalo.
because it's cheaper to do that. But if I'm traveling in North America, and depending on where I'm going, how long I have to go,
Sorry,
and what
I
I
dropped
want
on you.
and what I want to see, road trips are okay for that. But then you've got the whole disadvantage of you got to have gas, and gas prices in North America are not particularly cheap, cheaper in the States than they are in Canada. Yeah, and then if you want to see a city, and if you're in a big American city, or even for that matter, if you're in a city in Canada, somewhere that you've never been before, there you are. You got to figure out where you're going. And I mean, he drives. I don't. I couldn't do it because I get too nervous with it because I'm looking all over the place. It's a strange environment for me to be in, and I panic. So I don't find them very relaxing in that case with it. But if you want to see places and you want to have more freedom in your itinerary, then road trips are okay.
Well, Julie sort of says, I don't like vacation. My vacation's planned down to the last thing. Well, I don't plan our vacations down to the last thing.
No, we have flexibility.
In it. Mind you, the last time we went to Australia, I did plan for hotels to be at certain spots and stuff like that. But
Because we had a rented car.
right, but there were times where I didn't really exactly know what we were doing that day. So, I mean, we sort of went with the flow. And
He was sort of like a travel agent or an itinerary where it says, you could do this, or we could do that, or we could do this, or we could do all this, or whatever. And that was more on our schedule, but we had a rented car in that case with it. So we could do that. We don't have it planned right down to the absolute
it really depends on the situation of how our travel was going. If you're on a cruise ship, then you have to be a little bit more precise as to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But if you're on a regular trip, thinking back to your trips to Australia, is there one town or city that you could live in?
Brisbane.
All of them.
All of them, actually. Melbourne's really nice. Adelaide's really nice. Sydney's really nice. But Brisbane, I think I liked out of them all. Well, Melbourne, though.
No, all of them had their own
personality.
And I can't really pinpoint where I would say, where I would live in, if I would actually move there, where I would actually settle.
I mean, I wouldn't move to Cairns because it's too far away from everything and it's small. Cairns is nice.
It's too far
but
north,
it's just too far.
And it's susceptible to bad weather.
Yeah, and things like that, and that. Melbourne is a great city for cultural, restaurants, entertainment, nightlife. It's
I
been
think-
voted as the
I
best,
think that-
most livable city in the world 7 years in a war. 7 years in a row by the, I think, Forbes magazine or The Economist or something like that.
I think Brisbane actually has the more moderate climate between the two. So,
And Brisbane's a very nice city, and
well, you know, it's funny because when we went to Perth, we met a couple of people that we had met in China, and we said,
Perth. I forgot about Perth.
I said about Perth was very nice too.
Yeah.
And I said, I said, well, we didn't actually get to Brisbane, and they said, oh, well, you can skip Brisbane, right? There's nothing in Brisbane, and actually, I had sort of a negative thought about that when we went to Brisbane, so I didn't really know what to expect when we got there, but actually,
We were pleasantly surprised.
We were pleasantly surprised. So,
But you see, that's the dichotomy between West Coast and East Coast. Because Perth is the West Coast. So in our equivalency, it's is that a word?
Vancouver.
Vancouver, as opposed to, say, Toronto, or maybe even further east out to, say, Halifax in Nova Scotia. It's very territorial. Vancouver people have a different mentality than people that come from our area, from Toronto. In fact, people out in the west coast of Canada think those of us in Ontario are snobby. We think people on the west coast are a little bit country and a little bit hicky out there. So you see,
you also have to remember our country is so huge.
yeah. But it was the same sort of mentality in
Yeah.
Australia, from at least from what we heard from these people. You know, that was like, Perth was very nice. Perth was very business, I found. Brisbane was more resorty, holiday kind of mentality, I
The
found.
Inviting Thoughts says, I love Brisbane and I lived in everything. Inviting Thoughts doesn't live far from Brisbane.
So Chris, you might be a little biased. But no, Brisbane, I mean, I said when we hit Brisbane and when we were there, if I had to live someplace in Australia, Brisbane would be one of top of my list.
Because we ended up spending more time in Brisbane than we expected.
And more so than we ever spent in Sydney or in, well, no, not more time in Sydney.
More time in Sydney, but we spent a lot of time in Brisbane because of the fact that our Darwin extension had been canceled.
Yeah.
But actually, in some ways, that was a bonus to the trip. In some ways, I think that we would have been bored and I hope we would have been bored in Darwin. But anyway.
Jody says, I think you both have a talent for packing very smart too. Is there anything that you can think of that you said on your trip, or we should have bought that? That comes from years of traveling experience. When we first traveled, you should have seen what I packed. I had everything but the kitchen sink. But then you realize, especially when you're flying and lately, now in the early years, you didn't have as much of a restriction and you didn't have to pay for your bloody suitcase to be checked on the airplane. Of course, mind you, when you go international, you don't have to pay, at least on a Canadian flight. But it's just lugging it. You have all this stuff and you take too much. I used to take way too many clothes. And each trip we've been on ever since, my amount gets smaller and smaller. You saw the amount of fabric I brought back from Australia. Well, that was because I didn't have a lot of clothes.
Yeah, we had basically half a medium suitcase.
And the other thing is, if you forget something, unless you're going to a really third world country in the backwoods of Africa somewhere, you can buy it. And like in Australia, first time we went, we had taken clothes for New Year's Eve. Then I realized that wasn't what I wanted to wear because it's too hot. And I had brought a long sleeve dress shirt and kind of a thing. So we went shopping. I bought a short sleeve dressier shirt there. Again, when we were younger and first traveling, that meant more money. Now, it doesn't matter. as much. Sure, we still have to watch the money. I mean, we don't have money to throw around like that, but we have more money than we had 30 years ago.
Actually, it's interesting. Julie Chambers, who must be from the UK,
Yeah,
says
Julie
we
is.
love getting a ferry across the channel and driving around Europe, and we both love driving on the right side instead of
left.
left. You know what's weird about that?
Yeah.
Is I've driven twice now in Australia on the left side. I was very intimidated to do that, but once I got the hang of it, I really didn't notice much difference.
Yeah, so we came home, we drove on the left side. Didn't work here. Yeah, not the same. No, well, there's the advantage to living in Europe too, I think. Distances are so much smaller than they are here. So driving around in a car and seeing the countryside or little villages along the way and the whole bit, I could see that as being a great way to travel through Europe. And
Actually, we've never done that.
we have
should
never
do
done that. No, maybe we should try that someday. I mean, we did it in Holland,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Holland, you can drive across in 2 hours.
Plus, in Europe, the train system is so far superior to anything we have in North America. You can get anywhere on the train system, and they actually come on time and get you there with the whole bit.
Maybe that's what we should do.
Yeah, maybe that should be something we should do. But yeah, so I want to talk about, and our time is starting to run down here.
I mean, we've covered all kinds of stuff, but not really.
Well, the thing I want to talk about is our very first trip, okay, together, okay? So picture it, 36 years ago. We had just
A
met.
skinny Steve and a skinny Walter.
What do you mean? I'm still svelte. That's why this table the camera doesn't go any lower. And that's why we're not doing it under the patio, because I saw the video and went, oh, okay, that's making me look fat. So we had just kind of met. We'd met 6 months before. School holidays came up, and I had said to Walter, I've always wanted to drive across Canada to BC when I say across Canada, from Ontario to BC, which is a distance of about
2,700 kilometers one way.
yeah. And he said he always wanted to do that too. So we did. But I was a second year teacher, kind of a thing. We both we weren't being paid a lot of money at the time. We didn't have a lot of money. So we had to do it on a shoestring budget. I remember that I was a member of the CAA at the time, Canadian Auto Association, and they would do you as part of one of their services for members. They would plot you out a course to wherever you want it to go, and they gave you these maps. Okay, this is 1984. Okay, so no internet.
I lied. We're 4,259 kilometers away.
Yeah, I thought you were a little under.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So anyways, yeah, so did you hear? He said it's over 4,000 kilometers away. So anyways, CAA plotted it all out, gave us maps, because no GPSs, no internet, all that kind of stuff at the time.
Which is 2,600 miles. Sorry. Anyway.
Good. Would you like to also put that in yen
Yeah. all
for
right,
us?
fine.
Thank you. I forgot what I was saying. So we drove out, and we drove out in my car because his car broke down. He had a Mustang.
I had a Mustang, and I had the rear engine gaskets go all the time on it, and it was leaking oil in my driveway when we left.
And I had a second-hand Omega. They don't even make them anymore. It was a GM product, General Motors product. Anyway, so we took my car. So we have the map, and away we go. Now, we did not do the planning that we've been telling you about then. We didn't have hotels figured out. We didn't have anything figured out. All we knew is we're getting on the Trans-Canada Highway, which is the highway that runs from Newfoundland to BC, and we're following it all the way to BC and back. We did have one plan. We wanted to stay in every capital city of each province as we went across. That was our goal. So in we get in the car. It's July. It's hot. Did the Omega even have air conditioning?
No, you didn't have
No,
air
didn't have air conditioning in that day. So there we are with I don't even think I had a tape player in that
Yeah.
car. we were using a boom box in the back seat, weren't we?
And I think so. And the other thing was, I in those days, all the provincial governments in Canada produced something called an accommodation guide.
Yes.
Right? And the accommodation guide would list hotels and approximate prices in these hotels.
So we start off. Now, we were told by friends, or someone told me, okay, worst part of traveling across to the West Coast is getting out of Ontario. You're going to be so bored out of your gourd. And I'm thinking, no, I've never seen Northern Ontario because we live in Southern Ontario, okay? Like right next to the border to the United States kind of a thing. There's a whole lot more of Ontario if you look at a map that goes way beyond the Great Lakes. 3 bloody days of pretty much constant driving, except when we stopped for a hotel for a night.
Driving through bush.
And
we were
rock.
At times worried that we wouldn't find a gas station to refill.
And let's not mention the wild animals, although we were lucky. Moose didn't attack us.
I never forget stopping in this one town in Northern Ontario, and it was like a really tiny gas station that had 2 pumps in it. And the guy came out and filled our tank, and he says, "Well, have you seen any moose?"
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Have you seen any moose? No. Watch out for the moose. Okay. So we're city boys, sort of. So off we go. And, it's pretty. Oh, it is very pretty. For the first 5 to 10 minutes, it's gorgeous. For the next 16, 20 hours, it's, oh my God, when are we going to see civilization? Because we go around these bends and there's another rock and another bush. Well, there must be civilization when we get this. No, there's a bush and another rock. No moose. And keep going. So I thought we'd never get there. We finally get to Thunder Bay. Okay, Thunder Bay is very close to where Ontario ends and the next province starts, which is Manitoba. Okay, so what we call the start of the Western Prairie provinces. All right, so we're in Thunder Bay and we get this hotel room, and over top of the beds there are little samplers that say Jesus saves all on all the walls in the place. Like, this place was like, okay, what have we walked into here? It's like, oh, the Christians are going to kill us. And we went to some restaurant. It was something we didn't have down here then. Was it not a Kelsey's?
Might have been Bellamy's.
Bellamy's. It might have been Bellamy. It was some roadhouse thing, right? And in there, they're just good old boys drinking their beer every night of the week. So anyways, pretty much redneck. So the next day, this is 3 days into the trip, okay? We're still in Ontario. So we're getting out and we're getting to Manitoba. We're getting excited now, okay? Because now we're out of our own province. We're going to across the prairies. Now, we were always told in school that the prairies are very, very flat. Liars!
No, that the trip from Ontario to Winnipeg, it was flat.
Oh yeah, that part was, but the rest of the prairies aren't that flat. Well, they're not as hilly as Ontario, but anyways, we could see Winnipeg, which is the capital of Manitoba, down the road. We're not far from it. An hour later, we can still see Winnipeg, but it's not getting any closer because that part was so flat, you could see, and it was clear, you could just see forever to the end. So we finally get to civilization. Well, it was Winnipeg. So we get to Winnipeg. And again, we want to stay. When we got to capital cities, we looked for a hotel right downtown. Well, in those days, hotels were a lot cheaper, but they still could be expensive. So we stayed in a lot of flea bag hotels. Like, I remember we paid like $25, $30 a night for a hotel. And that was, at the time, we were counting our pennies out on this thing. So we weren't eating at the Ritz on all of that. And in Winnipeg, okay, the other thing we want to do, and this is where the gay part comes in. We also wanted to go to the capital cities because we knew that with each capital city, there would be 2 things. There would be a university or a college, and there'd be probably a gay bar. But the gay bars were underground in those days. Remember, this is 1984, okay? And we were certainly not out of the closet in those days either. So we would go looking for these gay bars. Now, in those days too, they didn't call them gay bars in the yellow pages or in the telephone book. You looked under homophile. Get this? You ever heard that word? Homophile. It sounds like a certain section of the library. Oh yes, books on homophile right over here, kind of a thing. So we'd find them, and they usually had a number, and you'd call the number and go, "Hi, are there any gay bars in town?" And they'd usually tell you yes or no and what the hours were and how to find it. In Winnipeg, it was really easy to find. It had a neon sign outside and went, "Gay bar here, gay bar here." Well, actually, it's a gay community center, something like that. So we went in there, and they had you went upstairs in this old building, and they had sort of a bar area. So we sat down, we had an ordered a beer, because it is the West, and beer is popular in those days out West. And so we're ordering a beer, and there's a guy sitting in a booth next to ours. And I guess he heard us talking about what we were going to do in Winnipeg when we were there, because the next day we were going to travel around, see whatever we could see. And he pops over the seat and goes, "Oh, where are you from?" Real friendly guy, and the whole bit. So we talked to him. He told us a few places. Next day we're out and about walking around. This taxi driver pulls up. It's the same guy. He drives a taxi. "Well, I can take you wherever you want to go," kind of a thing. I think he had other ideas in his head too, but we didn't. But we were scared little puppies in those days. So we just, "Oh, thanks very much. We're fine. Okay, keep driving."
Inviting Thought said they drove from Perth to Adelaide. I don't know, Perth to Adelaide. Across the Nullarbor.
Yeah, well, that's a sizable drive, because that's why we flew.
I have to take a bathroom break.
Oh, geez. Any good, now I can get on with the story.
Yeah, go ahead.
So anyways, after Winnipeg, we drove to Saskatchewan, which is the next province. The capital of Saskatchewan is Regina. Okay, nobody told us that when you get to Regina in July, there's this algae, a special kind of algae that grows on the Assiniboine River that meanders all the way through Regina and around through the province, and it smells basically like a sewer backs up. The whole city smelled like crap, literally. Okay? So you had that. Now, when I call these cities, these are our cities, but they are not cities that people think of like massive. Like Toronto in those days, 36 years ago, was probably under 3 million people. Okay, and it is our largest city in this country. Okay, it's bigger than that now, but still, as cities goes, I think it's at about 3.4 million, something like that. So on the big scale of things, in comparison to United States cities, not that big. Well, Regina, Winnipeg, you're talking, I don't even think they were at 1 million 36 years ago. I don't know. They were really more like very large towns. And had the mentality of very large towns too. Weren't very cosmopolitan in those days. Now, that's all changed in 36 years, okay? So if you've never been to Canada and you're thinking about going those places, please remember I'm talking about this from 36 years ago perspective, okay? It's not what they are today. Anyways, we got there, again, looking for a hotel downtown. We got this flea bag room in a hotel that literally looked like something came out of an old movie. You walked in, it had one wrought iron bed. It had a sink right there in the room at the foot of the bed, and it had a bathroom that was basically a toilet and a tub. Okay? You opened up the window blinds, it was a brick wall. That was what it was. But it was $22 a night, I remember that. And it included breakfast, which was a bargain on itself. Of course, when you went through the lobby, you had to stumble through a whole lot of, let's just say, not the most desirable people in the world. Oh, I forgot to tell you about why I have a fear of native peoples. Okay? When we were in Winnipeg, the hotel we're staying at, we couldn't find a parking spot, and I went in to try and get us a room. So Walter's driving, right? And he just pulls up in front of the hotel. I walk in to get a room. And I froze. And I walked back out, and I'm kind of white, and Walter's going, "What's the matter?" Well, you see, this is a story for another day, so I'm just going to do a really short version of it. Out of the bar on the main level of the hotel walked out all these native people. They'd been in drinking. I had a fear of native people at the time, mainly because of something that happened to me when I was a child in school. I didn't realize that I had been traumatized by this thing that happened to me as a child until that moment when they came out. I just froze. So anyways, I'm over that now. I'm fine. But at the time, that's what happened. Anyways, back to Regina. So Regina smells like crap all the time we're there for the reasons I already told you, and this place that we stayed in, this Fleabag Hotel. So then we keep driving, and we get to Calgary, which is in Alberta. And Calgary is not the capital, but there's only really two main...
Actually, we didn't go to Calgary. We went to Saskatoon. Then we went
to Saskatoon. Oh, that's right. Saskatoon was Saskatchewan, though, too. Yeah, Saskatoon is actually not the capital of Regina, of Saskatchewan. Regina is, but Saskatoon is the other major city, town there. And that was funny, because you know how I said about trying to find the gay bar in every town? Well, in Saskatoon, we had to go native. We had sort of an address, and we drove around. We couldn't find this place, and in those days, everything was underground, so there weren't big signs except in Winnipeg about, which were kind of progressive if you think about it at the time. But we could hear music. It was the 80s. We could hear this heavy thump of bass, disco music, dance music, bang, 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 bang. We could feel it coming up through the ground, but we didn't know where this place was. No signs. I literally, at one point, we got out of the car, I put my ear to the ground and went, I think it's over there. Because we knew this had to be the gay bar because of the beat.
Well, plus we had an address.
We had an address, but we couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Now, we knew we were in the area, but whatever. So we found it. It was this little building in the middle of a parking lot kind of a thing. No markings on it. Went up to a door, and literally... you knocked on the door, little slide thing came across, and it was like, "Hi, Bob sent us," kind of a deal. And in those days, you had to sign in when you went into the bars because they were private clubs, supposedly. And yeah, it looked like somebody's rec room inside, actually, potato chips and pop kind of party in there. But that was kind of interesting. Then we get from Saskatoon, we get across and we go to Calgary. Calgary has changed in 36 years because we had revisited it back in 95. But when we were there, it was really not that exciting. It was kind of a one-horse town. And I don't remember a lot about it. Didn't really thrill me. We went on to Edmonton, which is the capital of Alberta. Much more sophisticated city. Very modern city in looks. And of course, once you get out of past Quebec and Ontario, the East Coast, these are the old parts of Canada. The further west you go, the newer they become because they were all settled later than Ontario and Quebec and the eastern provinces. So the architecture is more modern and things like that. And Edmonton, I remember at the time looking at it thinking it was a really super modern looking city. We went to a bar there that was cowboys there or wannabe cowboys and the whole bit. That was country and western. And ate in some place that seemed to be the bee's knees at the time. I don't know, very trendy kind of place for 1984. A lot of people wearing shirts with alligators on them, that kind of thing. Of course, they were probably gay too, because it's usually who wore the shirts with the alligators on. I know, I had several of them. And then we made our way to the Mecca, Vancouver. Okay? So, the three major cities in Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. So we're off to Vancouver. We get there. It's interesting. It's a nice place to see and the whole bit, but boy, are they ever laid back. It's sort of like California. At the time, they were like California. Like what you think, like surfed up, dude, and the whole bit. So that was interesting. So on the way back, we decided to travel through the northern United States. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh, I don't even know how to describe it. Going through the northern part of the states at that end of the world.
It was very desolate.
Very desolate. We hit the Badlands, which the Badlands are all these
North Dakota.
big roads. North Dakota,
Wall,
Wyoming. Wall Drugs.
Wall Drugs. Was that South Dakota or North Dakota?
I forget which Dakota that was in, but you saw signs for it hundreds of miles away from it. Got to go to Wall's Drugs and see this. This whole town is based around Wall's Drugs, which basically is a whole bunch of old stores all attached together. There's things you can shop for in that.
And a bunch of hotels.
And a bunch of hotels.
I don't know what it's like today. We're talking
Yeah.
1983, but
84.
84.
Yeah. But anyways, and back home. But you want to know something? Out of everywhere we have traveled, all the trips we've taken in the last 36 years, the whole bit, I still think that that was probably our best trip. And why is that? Because we didn't know what we were doing. Every day was a new adventure. We had no money for anything, but we survived. And I think that one's going to stay in my mind for the rest of my life as being the best trip ever. Now, mind you, if I had to do that all over again, probably not. Ick, no. But that was it. Okay, Carol, see you later. So anyways, that was their first trip early. So why do we like to travel? Because it isn't here. That's what I tell people.
I mean, the more I travel, the more I appreciate where I live.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I don't know if there's places that we've seen that we've traveled in the world that we say, oh, I could live here.
Yeah,
But
not really.
But probably not.
I wouldn't leave my country.
We're used to living where we are, and we've all grown up here, and it's just the way that it is. It has its shortcomings, but lots of people come to Ontario and want to see all of Ontario, and it's stuff that we're used to, right?
Yeah.
And they think it's wonderful.
Yeah, they think it's great.
So it's like they're traveling to our country.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But I think that's probably the truth.
I'm
for
sure
anything.
that's true for anybody that lives anywhere. That you get used to your own location, and you don't necessarily see all of the advantages to where you're living.
But a couple of other things I want to bring up before we end this, and we're going a little over time here.
Yeah.
Okay. One, travel with friends. Just say no. Unless you know these people so well and you've traveled with them for many years, just say no. It has never ended well for us. Mainly because I feel when we go with friends, if it's someplace we've been to before, like in some trips that we've had, I feel like I'm a tour guide. You know, well, you can feel like they have to do this, and you have to see this, and you have to see that because we've seen it, blah, blah, blah.
And we've even tried traveling with people that says, look, this is what we're going to do. We'll do our thing during the day. You'll do your thing during the day, and we'll maybe meet up.
And we'll regroup for dinner and talk about our day.
And we've had problems where that doesn't
And
happen.
that doesn't work. And if you want to get to know the real personality of people, live with them. And in the sense of on a trip, kind of a thing. Doesn't work well for us. Maybe other people have great experiences with that. I've often thought it would be nice to go with a whole entourage, like on a cruise ship or someplace, a resort or something. But you want to know something? I don't think it would be. That's just in my imagination. Now, other people probably have
We're
other
two people
experiences
that
with
are
that.
used to traveling together, and we like that, and we sort of like our independence. So.
Yeah. Oh, Kim's here. Hi, Kim. Kim says, or you are super clear at the beginning as to what you want to do and that you're tied to each other when you get there. Yeah, that's true. And we've been that way. And the other thing, too, how to ruin a friendship. Okay? Travel with other people. I don't care who you are or how well you know the people. Unless you've been living with them 24 hours a day for a long time, you still are going to find out things you didn't know about them before, and they may not necessarily be positive things. So I would rather travel on our own. We travel together fine. Why? Because Walter says what we're going to do, and I say yes. So it works out for us. But that's because he picks most of the things he knows that I'm going to like too. So no problems. But you put other people into the mix, that doesn't work out. I mean, small example. We went with a bunch of people once to Provincetown.
We thought that we knew them
And
well.
we thought we knew them well. And no. And it was disaster. We traveled with a couple of people we didn't know as well, but lived in our own subdivision, and we only went to like Ottawa and Quebec, and we thought it'll be fine. No, it did not end well. And I'm not saying it's completely their fault. I mean, it was just, it didn't work. I mean, it works for us because we've been around each other for a long, long, long time. So, that's fine. So, my recommendation is don't. Just don't. Okay, and traveling as gay men. Okay. We have those friends who travel and who think it's important that with every country in the world you go to, you have to stand there and announce that you're gay and think everybody has to accept you and give you all the same rights and respect and privileges that we have in our own country. No, they don't. They don't have to. They will kill you, literally. And these people don't learn this.
So, like when we went to Egypt, we kept a low profile.
We kept very low profile in Egypt because they will hang you.
And, I mean, it's better safe than sorry. And when we have traveled in other places we're a little unsure of, we'll tend to keep a lower profile. I mean, not that we are high profile to begin with.
No.
I mean, we don't stand around and walk with hand in hand.
I got that.
But we will book a room with one bed, right? And we have had attitude at the hotel counter.
We've had attitude in Australia.
Yeah.
With it. Well, slight attitude. It's basically, they usually question, you sure you just want
are you
one
both
bed?
Staying in the same room?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are. Well, there's only one bed booked.
Yeah, we know.
We know.
We got it.
I mean, it used to be here was that when the gay rights started coming out and stuff, they would say subtly about, your room is booked with one queen size bed. Will that be enough?
Yeah. And we go, yes, it is.
Right? And, but then we had one when we were driving down in, I think it was something like that. Not Lennox, it's something like that on our way down to Florida. Can't remember where it was. We stayed and I had one bed booked. And actually they gave us a really heavy duty attitude.
Oh, yeah, they kept...
Lennoxville or something.
There's something, yeah.
And it was like in a 5-point Sheraton or something like that, and we went in and we had one king size bed booked, and they were saying, well, the two of you aren't staying in the same room. Yeah, what's the problem?
But you have to, as Kim says right here, you have to abide by the rules of the country in all respects. Yes, you do. It's not your country, and it's not going to be like your country, no matter. This doesn't even apply to just being gay. This applies to anybody traveling in a foreign country. And I'm sorry, but a lot of Americans, when they travel, they don't get that. They expect things to be like it is in North America, and it's not. And I can list a whole lot of examples, and I'm not going to do it right now because we're getting too close to our time. But over the 36 years that we've been together and traveling, there's umpteen many times when the Americans have gone in and expected to have things according to the standard they're used to in North America. And it's not the way it's done. And they get upset because people don't cater to that. When you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. So, that's the best advice I can give you on that. So future travel plans. Where do we want to go next? Well, we already talked about maybe another cruise. I'd like to do what Kim's about to do. A river cruise at some point. She's going on a fantastic river cruise from Prague to Budapest, I believe, very soon. And
oh, that was Nuremberg to Budapest.
Well, yeah, but she goes to Prague first, and then okay, I stand to be corrected again. Okay, you travel with that. I'm used to it. Yeah, river cruise. A regular cruise. Japan. Kind of would like to go to Japan.
One place I've always wanted.
Yeah, I want to go to Japan. We talked about India. Still a little unsure about India. People I've talked to who have been to India say it's been great. They've had a good time. But as I think I've said on this broadcast before, if we were to go to India, I'd only do it on a very good, organized tour where everything is looked after. Because I love Indian food and the whole bit, but I'm not taking my chances except in a place where, it's geared towards North American tourist people. So that kind of thing. I'm just thinking of my health more than anything else.
Chatterbox quote says, Japan for the International Quilt Festival.
Yeah, there's an idea. We'll see. We'll probably get there eventually. So, anyways, that's our big thing about traveling, and our time is way up. So, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for your thoughts and things that you said on here as well. I don't know what our topic next week's going to be. If you have some ideas, send them to me during the week. Just put comments in the show notes below, and we'll check that out. I have a few things that other people have suggested, so we'll have to pick one. So it will be a mystery until next week. So, talk to everybody next week. My vlog is on tomorrow. Those of you that are Canadian, happy Canada Day tomorrow. And we'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye for now. Say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye, Walter.